I didn't follow the rules. Aubry Marcus put out an ask to his listeners to go through a podcast he recently did with a gentleman by the name of Dr. John DeMartini. And this podcast, well, you'll see what it's about in just a minute. But he asked his listeners if they would be interested in going through the entire podcast and looking at it as if it were a debate and giving a point system to the different talking points that came up. And I did that. I listened and I re-listened and I really tried to give a point system. And I'm going to explain why I chose not to. In a debate, there's a few things that you look for, like clarity, logic, like supporting evidence, things along those lines. And if we use these rules of a debate, then Dr. DeMartini, would have won only because he had more time to talk. Aubry was the interviewer and asking questions, and every once in a while he would give his thoughts or his opinions, and there would be a bit of a debate. So it was really difficult to look at it in that structured format. So I didn't follow the rules. But I hope you enjoy the perspective that I offered as a result of watching this very heated and stressful video. Okay, I hope you all have a beautiful day and enjoy. Hey there. So this video is in response to an ask by Aubry Marcus. He's a very popular and well-known podcaster, for his listeners to create a video where they analyze a podcast that he did with a gentleman by the name of Dr. John DeMartini. And Dr. DeMartini is he's a very well-known and well-regarded behavior specialist. And this podcast was very stressful to watch, to say the least. But he wanted us to come up with a sort of point system that analyzed this debate between the two men, saying that either Aubry or Dr. DeMartini won or lost a certain point, and to go through the entire podcast, doing that. So I did that. I went through the whole podcast. I listened and I re-listened and I took notes and I, said who won a point, who didn't. But the waters got really muddy on a lot of subjects. So ultimately, I am not going to go through and give a play-by-play on here's what they said and here's what I think and here's who I say won or lost. But what I am going to do is give this overarching perspective on what I saw in the podcast and what my views are on their ultimate questions of, is there true and an ultimate right and wrong? Is there evil, basically? And so you're going to see, if you watch through this whole video, what this other perspective is. And, you can determine for yourself whether or not it opens up some awareness to another concept. So what I found interesting in this podcast is that both men had, very different opinions, one coming from the head, one coming from the heart, seemingly. And they danced around the concept and touched on this concept a little, but they never landed on it. And it's the concept of individuation and unity consciousness. But to understand what I mean, like I said, you're going to have to watch this video in its totality, because I'm breaking up bigger concepts into small little talking points to ultimately make a point. So what they are discussing, as I mentioned, is a question that is in many of our hearts, again, either consciously or unconsciously. Is there an ultimate right or wrong? Is there judgment? Is there evil? So we can't transcend and see the game for what it is by using the same rules for which the game was actually formed. And we're attempting to put rules to things that are based on answers to questions that have been asked since the beginning of time. So what if we shift our perspective, reorganize our questions? What if the universe is nothing more than a platform for us to become who we are meant to be? And if there are fundamental rules for us to follow, the outcome, it's going to be restricted, and the intent wouldn't be pure. And I'm going to talk about that more later. But what if we are given the very darkest of dark to have the potential to experience, for us to have the potential to experience the brightest of bright and the lightest of light? And I'm not going to go into how you get to each one of those, points or how to make that happen. But it's not too uncommon for us to be in a situation where we're faced with a moral choice, where the outcome is the lesser of two evils, so to speak, that there isn't really a way, without justifying it to ourselves, to choose an outcome that is that completely aligns with our moral standard. So what if in those situations we're not meant to have an ultimate right outcome, but we're given the opportunity to choose, to the best of our ability, not to lie to ourselves on why we chose one way versus another, but with full authority choose the best path possible, knowing that it isn't perfect. There's this famous scene in The Matrix that you have probably seen where the Oracle asks Neo if he wants a piece of candy. And Neo responds that, well, why would she ask if she already knew? And she says to him that, well, she wouldn't be much of an oracle if she didn't know, but that wasn't the point of the question. The point and the purpose of the question was for him to understand why he made that decision and why he made that choice. I think that's it. So watching the podcast with Aubry and Dr DeMartini, they're really arguing these ultimate questions where perhaps the truth really is within both. We all have beliefs that run the show. They run the show on our conscious and the unconscious level. And we have the ability to rewrite our belief system at any time. We have the ability to rewrite the story that we're telling ourselves about something, an event, even in the most horrific of circumstances. And there's as many perspectives available as there are humans observing a situation. The web of karma and samsara, it's not something that the human can predict or control. Our very existence, our original sin, so to speak, is part of this human experience. The best that we're able to do is to lean in and to choose from our highest calling, whatever that looks like, to do our best, to be our best, to choose from where we are at any given moment. So we've been trained and programmed to think that there's this arrival point in this journey, that there is this, it's the ultimate of linear programming. Even if we don't actively believe in a literal heaven or hell, or like a location of a heaven and hell, we believe that there is ultimate judgment by some external being that affirms or condemns our choices in life. And the thought of that, it does make us feel safe, even if it's in our unconscious, that there's this belief and this knowing that if we, if we follow these moral rules, that we're going to be able to and get the reward of joining this creator, this benevolent being who loves us without judgment. And it's not because we're doing this to seek the win necessarily in all the cases, but we do feel safe in knowing that because of our choices that we're going to reap this reward. But more importantly, to keep in mind, it's that we think that those who don't make those choices are going to get punished. But I'm not saying that this isn't going to happen because we are, that it's not going to happen, but it's not because we're doing the right thing, but it's because we're becoming the person who does the right thing. So there's a verse in the Bible, there's a couple verses, and I'm going to have to read this. So there's a couple verses. One is by John, and it says that, "Let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And that verse emphasizes, the importance of self-examination before, judging others. And then there's one in Matthew And it's Matthew, book 7, verse 1 and 2. Therefore you should judge not, so that you yourself not be judged. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged. In the measure that you use, it will be measured unto you. So I'm not going to quote the Bible. It's not my thing, but it's one that a lot of folks might know. So I wanted to at least throw that out there. I want to use the example that Aubry brought up in his podcast, that he would, without hesitation, protect his wife if she were being attacked. And, there would be no hesitation. There would be no question on how he would respond. He was very clear about that his reaction would be out of the purest intent, that he wants to protect his wife. That's it. And it is the purest intent that he has at that time. And I want to zoom out and hypothetically use these understandings that he could have very easily, or could have been presented on his show at some point in the past, and understandings that he actually might himself agree with under different circumstances, potentially. So let's say it was part of his wife's karmic journey to understand forgiveness within a very particular circumstance, because that circumstance is also part of the karmic journey that she chose to understand in this life. And to be attacked was really giving her the opportunity to work through and to learn to understand forgiveness in a way that she never would have under any other condition. And coming to earth at this time, that again, hypothetically, that she agreed to balance the imbalance of her ancestors. And by having the opportunity to forgive was a massive part of her journey. And potentially, by not allowing her to do that in that moment, it elongates the process of her role here on earth. She chose to align, hypothetically, she chose to align herself with the greater cosmic grid through forgiveness. It was her role in life. And along those same lines, hypothetically, it could have been Aubry's karmic role to be the protector and the provider. And his choice in that situation will create whatever karma needs to be cleared or created, if any at all. We truly don't know, because it isn't for us to know, because if we did, and this is very, very important, if we did, our intentions wouldn't be pure. We would be doing things for the gifts that it would bring. And we can't know the outcome of our actions. We are here to live and to figure this out as we go, and to create this experience for the Creator based on our free will or personal agency. It was a concept that was actually only brought up a few times in the podcast. The collective energetic field hurts when we hurt, and is offered joy when we are joyful, because we're not separate. When you hurt another, you are hurting yourself and the divine within you, no matter the circumstances. It's quite literally different for every one of us. Where I think that Dr. DeMartini sort of went astray was believing that morality isn't needed in our existence, or it really appeared that he felt that that feelings are of no consequence, that it was like he separated out all of the ingredients of a cake and wanted to still call it a cake. It's similar to the particle and the wave theory, or you can't see the forest through the trees. Morality is what purifies our eternal being, but it isn't morality based on rules. That will not purify our being. The only purification that's needed is acting on what is as deeply as we're able to perceive in the most aligned action with love. And that can and that will look differently to every person based on their experiences, their beliefs, and more importantly, the willingness to look at themselves honestly. Someone who has the ability to see a situation objectively and non-reactionary will find themselves responding in their heart consciousness. Because ultimately, we're all part of the whole, and what you do to one, you do to everyone. No matter the reactions or response to our situation, we are held and we are loved if we truly believe that we are eternal beings having a human experience. If we embrace and embody that concept, we will understand that whatever happens, whatever experience we have, is to align us with our eternal path and with the divine and with the Creator. We mistakenly believe that if we are more comfortable and trauma-free in life, and the more aligned we are with our path, that we're doing something right to be in such good graces, with the universe, with the collective. But for us to decide where we stand with spirit, it's not a position for us to embrace. We have free will, and we have really only the ability to align or misalign with our divine purpose. There's no judgment. The love of the Creator of the universe really is unconditional love. And it's one of the greatest lies that we have embraced, is that this is a linear process, that there is an inherent and clear right and wrong, because what is right for you is wrong for another based on the experiences that we're here to have. And it seems that we're here to strengthen our character, our eternal being, with every choice and every micro choice that we take. And it will either clear or muddy those waters. Whatever is chosen in any moment, it's calculated based on our intention, not the outcome, because we're not God in solidarity. We are here to learn from this whole construct. We don't know how our actions are going to affect those around us. What we do know, whether our intention is pure and in alignment with our soul's calling, because that calling could be in complete opposition to another soul's calling. Living with respect and reverence to all of the possibilities and living with pure intent is of the utmost alignment that we can expect to embody in this life. And if that means that we feel that we have no choice but to fight our partner's attacker, then that is what we do. That's what we have to do. There's no judgment one way or the other, but the judgment that we place on ourselves. We are part of a system that our human minds can barely hold or hope to understand. We are our own judge and jury. Only our soul knows the song that we hold for our ancestors and what we are here to do. None of us are singularly the savior of the world, because there's nothing for us to be saved from. It was all created out of love, and even and especially when we're not able to see it. So how do you respond under pressure, ultimately? This all feels so real and so visceral. And it's all meant to seem that way, yet it's all in our mind. We create the wars, we create the brutality, we create the meaning. But none of that is done in vain. It's all being done in creation. We are humans living on Mother Gaia, on Mother Earth. The reason that this particular planet is our home is because humans energetically align with the frequency and reality of death and rebirth, the same as Earth. It's our frame of reference. A tree doesn't look over at a bee, going from flower to flower, screaming, how profane, and what is that what does that bee doing? How could he be doing that to all those plants and all those flowers and whatever? The tree is just doing its thing. Just as the flower is doing their thing and the plant is doing theirs. And, I'm obviously not talking about specifics. I'm talking about energetic resonance. It's the story. It's the dance, the rules of our existence. It's the sacred blueprint to existence. So what about evil? Well, evil shows up when one imposes their will onto another. And it gains power, that evil gains power through every choice and every micro choice that we make that is in alignment with those transgressions. And it happens on a very subtle level. Remember that every time that we choose in alignment with a lower frequency thought or action, we're giving energy to that aligned team. That's why developing discernment is of the utmost importance. Hate is hate, no matter how it's packaged. Kindness is kindness in the same way. What ultimately solidifies it into evil or divine are the intentions behind the action. When we postulate over a certain cause without being able to make a difference, we are giving our power away. We are allowing ourselves to be controlled. We are feeding a lower vibrational being. It's more important for us to assist the neighbor who might need help, say, getting to the grocery store, than it is for us to make a post online about the horrors that are taking place in different parts of the world, or all of the wrongs that we're finding with our political leaders. And I'm not saying that it's not helpful to help wake people up, but it's not our job. We have been indoctrinated to believe that there is this heaven, this hell, this ultimate authority that and we're living on this linear path, but we are multidimensional beings living in a reality with the ability to experience the very deepest of evil and the most angelic divinity. Who we become in the process of these experiences is what really matters. That's what matters the most. The best thing that a tree can do is to be the best tree that it can be. Individuate itself, so to speak, but exclude itself or not exclude itself from the whole. Nature needs the tree to do its thing, just as the bee needs to do theirs and the plant needs to do theirs. The difference is that we as humans, we have a choice. We have free will, but it doesn't take us away from or out of the energetic path that humans are on. The reality of birth and death, it creates our earthly rules. But when we recognize that there really is no death as we define it, it's just a reorganization of energy, our experience is no longer linear. We are in the process of individuation. And through that discovery, through that process, we fully understand, or we have the potential to fully understand and embrace unity consciousness. Aubry and Dr. DeMartini were discussing things such as wars and torturous acts and events, that catapult humans into this very linear way of thought of the good guy and the bad guy, of the slave and the master. And the only way to break that entire paradigm and reality is to play the game by different rules, to create the rules that we want to see play out, and stop giving our power to a way of thought and to a system that keeps us stuck in an endless reality of duality. If we step into the role of observer through heart consciousness, it will change the whole thing. We create a game of finding joy. And all of that being said, I personally want to scream from the rooftops to just wake up, and for us to all choose and better, to make better choices. It can change everything to choose kindness over hate or love over judgment. Just stop, pause, and breathe. Give yourself room to respond versus react. And know that you're aligning with an existing stream of consciousness with every thought, with every intention. Yeah. And that's all I really wanted to say. And I know it's not exactly how Aubry wanted us to break things down. So this might be nothing more than just a helpful video for folks to maybe see things from a different perspective and open their eyes up to a different way of thinking. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I love you all, and I hope you all have